All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I got a fun one for you today. So, later on in the show, we will be talking about Joe Biden and how he acts in his private life. We have some reporting that he may be a massive prick. Okay, should we care? We'll dive into that. I'll talk about all of the things he's accused of saying, which are making people clutch their pearls. We also have, I'm going to lead in a second with the massive decline of one Ronald Pudding DeSantis. Great article, which I really think highlights like why he's fallen off colossally. So we'll talk about that. We also have Marjorie Taylor Greene gets booted from the Freedom Caucus, and Trump is accused of being massively pro-trans. I love how that's an accusation. Like, bro, you accept trans people. Gross. What's wrong with you? All right, so we'll dive into it in a second. Let me give everybody my shameless plugs real quick. You know the drill. Everybody click like. Click subscribe. I don't know how many times I have to beg you guys, but I will continue to beg you guys. You have to keep me in front of my wife in terms of subscriber numbers. Please, for the love of God. Crystal, I love you, but also I still want to have more subs than you. So click subscribe, click that bell icon so you get a notification every single time a video drops. Much love to all the Patreon supporters of this show. You guys make it work. You guys make it so I've never had a conversation with an advertiser. I'm very proud of that fact. And remember, you can always listen to the full audio version of the podcast if you'd like on Spotify. You don't have to go video for video on YouTube if that is not your thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into it here. So great article that I wanted to share with you guys. It's in splitticket.org, which honestly I'd never heard of before, but this article was phenomenal. I had to show you. It's called The DeSantis Decline. And it gets into, how this came about, how we got here, and why it's happening. So first off, let's just look at this chart, because this is really something. The decline of DeSantis. So there was a period where he was at 38.6% in the polls. Now, this happened right in the wake of the midterms, where all of Trump's handpicked candidates shit the bed the worst. And DeSantis was the most prominent Republican in the country who won by the biggest margin. He won by like 20 points. This is after, the last time he ran, he barely eked out a victory. So, he was being called the future by, the New York Post, and Fox News was singing his praises. And, his argument was, if you like Trump, I'm like Trump, except more intellectual, and I actually win. Which, hey, that's a powerful argument to make to a Republican base. And I was out there saying, I think he's the favorite at this point because Trump had imploded. Trump had lost his normie touch. He couldn't shut up about the 2020 election and how he thought it was stolen and all that stuff. And it made him, to normie America, Trump is poison. They're just not interested in him. But DeSantis in this primary, ever since he announced, has been going down and down and down. And you can see the numbers here. So he was at 38.6% at one point, and then he dropped all the way to 23.3%. When it comes to his net favorability, he was at plus 2.4 at one point. Now he's down to negative 9.7. And when it came to how his margin versus Trump head-to-head, there was a time when he was plus 1.3 over Trump, winning in the polls head-to-head with Trump. Now he's down 24 PZACs, dog. 24. Goddamn. Okay. So here's what they say. After former President Donald Trump led a handpicked slate of candidates to defeat in 2022, many Republicans sought a fresh face to lead the conservative movement. For some members of the GOP establishment, the ideal candidate was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. In him, they saw a younger, sharper version of the former president and someone who was popular with the party voters in his home state, where he had just coasted to an unprecedented 19-point landslide win. DeSantis seemed to offer a path forward for voters who agreed with many of Trump's core policies, but wanted a more controlled face for the party. This impetus for change was so strong that DeSantis actually led Trump in some primary polls back in mid-February, well before he even announced his campaign. Prominent analysts like David Shore went so far as to call him a favorite to win the nomination. I said the same thing as well. Guilty as charged. And pollsters like Nate Cohn noted his unique and rare strength among Republican primary voters in early polling. Instead of being a harbinger of things to come, however, that was the high point for DeSantis. His nation campaign has been hobbled by self-induced missteps, an indictment-fueled surge from Donald Trump, and his candidacy has flailed, with the Florida governor seeing his favorability and standing in primary polling plummet since his mid-February peak. So let me pause here to point this out. The indictment-fueled surge from Trump. is really something to behold, right? Because in a world that made sense, if you have a political candidate who gets indicted, it's almost like definitionally bad. And to be fair, it has been bad for Trump in a general election among, once you include independents and moderates and center-right people and Democrats, once you include the entire country, it has hurt him. The indictments have hurt him. But in the Republican primary, it is the exact opposite. He's gone up as a result of these indictments. So, I mean, look, the only thing that could really dampen this effect, potentially, is if Trump actually gets behind bars. But now I'm even of the belief that it's possible he could win the primary from bars, right? I mean, I wouldn't bet on that, but it's certainly a possibility. Why might this be happening? There are a few possible reasons. Although Trump had begun attacking DeSantis months ago on a variety of issues, DeSantis had steadfastly refused to push back until recently. This meant that while DeSantis' favorables began to plummet as his vulnerabilities got exposed by Trump, DeSantis would not raise a counter. All right, I have to pause on that too for a second because, look, Trump really unleashed on DeSantis. And at first, it actually hurt Trump in the polls, even among Republicans. But this is what Trump does, man. He pushes through the resistance. And so at first, everybody was shocked at the attack on DeSantis, a guy who was beloved by Republicans. Then after the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, at a certain point, the attacks on DeSantis just became like par for the course, number one. Number two, funny. And then number three, it would chip away slowly but surely at DeSantis' support. Now they're saying, hey, DeSantis hadn't hit back. So like that, is one of the reasons why he kept going down. I would counter that by saying, even if he hit back and he hit back effectively, I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference. He was caught between a rock and a hard place. If you hit back at Trump aggressively, you lose some of the people who support you because they also kind of like Trump. If you don't hit back, you look cuckish and you lose support either way. So Trump's like blitzkrieg style sort of had nothing but upsides with this attack on DeSantis. It's really interesting. It's like he was in such a pickle, and still is, DeSantis is, in such a pickle. Like, I don't know if fighting back aggressively would have actually helped him. I mean, it would be good if we could do a counterfactual and go back in time and he can punch back aggressively from the beginning. But I don't know if it would have changed much because a lot of this is coming down to vibes, man. Trump just has that base wrapped around his finger. Okay, let's continue, and we're going to get to a fact which I find astonishing, which I think explains what's going on more than anything else in just a second. DeSantis also is, by many accounts, extremely awkward on the campaign trail, you don't say. While his campaign had worked to shield him from tough questions at the start, the spotlight of a presidential primary quickly caused DeSantis' weakness to soon manifest in many different ways. The same social dynamic may have partly contributed to his struggle in the endorsement battle, with the Florida congressional delegation broadly opting to endorse Trump over DeSantis. Wow, so Florida Republicans went for Trump over DeSantis. While some DeSantis backers may argue that endorsements are overrated, they are not meaningless. History suggests that the volume of endorsements is actually about as predictive of the primary as polling is, and so the fact that DeSantis trails Trump on both fronts by margins is a major red flag for his candidacy. Now, look, he is awkward. I think he's very awkward. I also do think it's a little overstated how awkward he is. I've seen some videos where people are like, oh my God, look at this. Look at DeSantis. He looks so dumb. And then I watch and I'm like, it looks a little silly, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing too crazy. So I think it's overstated. And now that he's under the spotlight, a lot of the flaws are being highlighted more so. Another key problem for DeSantis is that as his national relevance has increased, his campaign decisions and policy goals have been placed under intense scrutiny by the media and donors. And these groups generally find his stances off-putting. Chief among the concerns expressed is his obstinate focus on rolling back LGBT rights, best shown in a bizarre advertisement that attacked Trump for allegedly promoting Pride Month. This ad was widely described as tone-deaf, out of touch, and terminally online. I actually said that. I mean, I'm sure other people did too, but that was my main criticism of it. It is also of questionable popularity or relevance to voters, even in a Republican primary. So, now to be fair, this ad was not made by DeSantis. It was made by, the DeSantis PAC, Super PAC, which I don't know how affiliated with it he is. I don't know if he gave it a green light, but I will say they did defend it when it was under fire. So that's an indication they're at least okay with it, right? Bad move, man. A June 2023 poll from Gallup found that 49% of Republicans supported the legality of same-sex marriages, when an April 2023 poll from Fox found that, here's the fact, guys, here's the fact, okay? An April 2023 poll from Fox found that only 1% of voters listed wokeness and transgender issues as the most important issue facing the country. It is not clear that these angles will meaningfully move the needle toward DeSantis, and they are certainly not ones that we think are likely to close a 30-point gap between him and Trump. His controversial policy stances extend to other issues too. He has taken the unpopular position of downplaying the Russian invasion of Ukraine, has endured significant criticism for banning books in Florida schools, and has faced serious pushback over his 6-week abortion ban. Look, that's the fact right there. Literally only 1% of voters in a Fox News poll said wokeness is the most important issue facing the country. Look, even if you broaden that out and say, is it in the top 3? Is it in the top 5? I think you're still getting a tiny, tiny number. Significantly less than a majority. And therein lies his main problem. Look, he's a one-trick pony. That's all he's got. All he's got is like, oh my God, bro, wokeness, bro. Wokeness, bro. Wokeness is like really bad and stuff. Did you know that wokeness is like bad? Do you know that the woke have gone too far? We will fight the woke in the schools. We will fight the woke on the trains. We will fight the woke on a boat. We will fight the woke with a goat. Like this, he tries to copy the Winston Churchill quote and just put woke in there. And like, it's all he's got. Once you get outside of the woke stuff, which is what he cares about the most and what he leans into the most, what else is there? Well, I'll tell you what else there is. Trump keeps hammering him because he says he wants to cut Social Security. And he voted to cut Social Security. He voted to, cut Obamacare, for example. Like, he kicked hundreds of thousands of people off of Medicaid in Florida. I mean, if you're on economics, you're just as bad as any other Republican. All Trump has to do is take his, populist instincts, even though Trump himself is an establishment hack. He's not actually a populist, but at least he knows rhetorically what to do. And he hammered your ass over wanting to cut Social Security. He said, you want to make grandma homeless, basically. You ran an ad on this. He's going to run circles around you, man. Because he doesn't have the normie touch. He just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the normie touch. He doesn't have the charisma, and the vibes are off. And when your main topic is wokeness, okay, yeah, the online right-wing poster contingent is going to nut in their pants over you. But everybody else in the country is sort of, ooh, yawn fest. Yeah, we got it. We know. We got it. We understand all your arguments. We know what you're going to say before you say it. And we're tired of it. We're sick of it. And so Trump ends up winning on the vibes front, which is really seemingly all that matters in this Republican primary. So I think I just learned that fact in this article, and it was astonishing. Only 1% of voters list wokeness or transgender issues. I knew trans issues were, the general population is not obsessed with these issues, right? And the Republicans are proposing hundreds of anti-trans bills, which is insane. But the wokeness thing, I mean, you could have guessed. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 30% of Republicans or something. No, 1% of the entire population has that as their most important issue. So that is clearly DeSantis' most important issue, and it's just falling flat, man. It's just falling flat. Now, he's tried to sort of switch it up a little bit, but he can't help himself. He always falls back to this. So, look, he's in dire straits. What I will say, and the point of caution at the end here, is he could have been like Jeb Bush. He could have been like Marco Rubio. He could have been like all these people who literally collapsed to like 0% support after the first Trump attack. He's not that. He has weathered more Trump attacks than any other Republican candidate in the 2016 race. But having said that, these dynamics better start changing or he's in serious trouble. And I think at this point, his best bet is if Trump actually goes to prison. But we don't even know if the timeline of the court case will facilitate Trump, if he's found guilty, being in prison before the election. So I don't know, man, but the collapse of DeSantis is absolutely real, and it's shown in the numbers. The only question is, what are the specific factors, and why do you think it's happening? Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.